Okay, I'm doing some parallel work with Ken L. Wheeler, not together. I'm just going through what he says lately because he's about the closest person to understanding magnetism on the planet that I've seen. He goes by the name of Theoria Apophasis on YouTube, and several people who've been watching my videos will notice that I've been referencing his work because he has all the radiuses and the phi and the equations for the magnetic field. But as I have said in the past, he does not know how energy moves through the field as seen by his pictures and descriptions. He shows donuts and so on his electromagnetic fields as donuts, whereas I show it to be two leaders that split and then wrap around the magnet across the inertial line, flip over, and then go back in through the bottom, showing the travel, which is not the field. So unfortunately though, Ken today posted a video which I'm going to show a few clips of it in a minute. A few of his things are wrong, I'm sorry to say. He's continuously ignored my requests to speak with him, but he seems to think that he's come up with a new massive secret about magnetism which he hasn't mentioned yet inside 2 weeks, whereas I have deliberately put all my work online showing that energy has two leaders. So I don't know what he's alluding to, but the very fact that he hasn't spoken to me and yet I've sent him videos and all this other stuff, and then suddenly he comes up with this magnificent idea, is pretty funny. So still waiting to hear what his absolute truth and divine simplex nature is, and we'll find out. Well, I got nothing against the guy, and I didn't want anything from him. Basically I was trying to help him out because he could help me due to the fact that everybody always says to me, where's the equations? Well, I haven't got any because I really don't care about equations, unless you know about the Fibonacci sequence, the Lorentz force, geometric geography and things like that. You won't understand what I'm drawing. So you need to go and learn about the Fibonacci sequence, the Lorentz force, and especially go see my work on the Lorentz force, because mine's slightly different from everybody else's, because I understand energy flow, because you don't get magnetic rings, you get magnetic ring to vortex to ring to vortex. Energy doesn't dissipate. When people sit there and say, oh, the energy cancelled itself out, one was positive and one was negative, is a pile of nonsense. Energy can't cancel itself out because it's energy. One is just a different orientation spin. One is clockwise, one is counterclockwise. So they do not cancel each other out. They form a standing wave, which then holds the matter in position with a opposite spin, positive and negative, which causes no motion. I have shown this how an electron locks. You got two speeds of light going in two different directions, but when two vortices, positive and negative, meet, that spin is lost. So you only have the atoms trying to rotate because two vortices have locked together around a particle, which is two vortices moving matter. The energy is moving around the outside, causing the vortex, which causes the compression particle. And so it becomes a non-static standing wave where the filament of the standing wave is the one transporting energy or matter. Anyway though, I'm going to talk about Ken's video here. I'm going to pull up a couple of clips and show by experimentation video that I've got that he's wrong. And so he really does need to listen to me, otherwise he's going to get no further because he doesn't understand anything more. All he knows about is the field. Energy has to run through the field and it runs in a certain way, and I've shown it because he showed it on his ice magnet sculptures but still didn't quite understand what was going on, and I said, yeah, that's the crossover point. So let's have a look at Ken's video. Just before we do that though, here's an example of a standing wave. This is water pouring, and that pine cone pattern in there is the Fibonacci sequence of two leaders spinning in opposite directions, and that's how you get one twisting right and one twisting left, which is what causes the standing wave. That pattern stays there. It does not move. But water is flowing, so water is flowing. So how is it flowing? It is flowing through the convergence lines of the standing wave, because that standing wave doesn't change, it doesn't rotate or anything. It looks like the bottom right hand picture of that Fibonacci cosmic bud. That's what the wave looks like, and it stays there, but it is the filaments of those lines which are rotating the water outwards. So that is an example of a non-static standing wave. The filaments move the matter because that's where the energy is running in the convergence lines. So Ken's going to be talking about bismuth and how it's been found to be superconductive at supercooled temperatures. And I've already said about superconductivity is a myth and it's totally pointless, and I'll explain why when you hear what Ken's got to say. I'll explain why superconductivity is actually a lie. It's just a stupid lie, really. And by my process of energy travel and movement, this could easily be accomplished at room temperature, because superconductivity depends upon the arrangement of matter and not upon the matter. Understand? Energy moves in a certain way. If you can create a molecule that mimics the easiest flow, you will get superconductivity. All right, well, I'll explain as we go. Here we go.
About bismuth. Now, I've got a large section in my free book uncovering the missing secrets of magnetism. This is a crystal, one of the many crystals I grew. Bismuth crystals. This is also another bismuth ball. Pure elemental bismuth that I actually cast myself, molten bismuth, experimentation with magnetism. I grew up actually playing with superconductor kits, yttrium, barium, copper oxide. I even had my own liquid nitrogen Dewar flasks. Mad scientist at an early age. Science, get this, you will love this shit. It is unbelievable. Totally vindicates every goddamn thing I've been saying about magnetism and supposed superconductivity, of which is a completely inaccurate term. There's no such thing as superconductivity. All that which is called superconductivity, and I've been experimenting with superconductor kits for many, well, decade and a half now. Like yttrium, barium, copper oxide, it is extremely low magnetic permeability. Here we go, look at this, major discovery of elemental bismuth. Turns out it is a superconductor. Wow. But the amazing thing is that, let me quote them here, bismuth, one of the weirdest looking elements in the periodic table, blah, blah, blah. According to the current theory of superconductivity, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm quoting here now, because for 40 years now, scientists have assumed that superconductive materials must be abundant of free-flowing electrons, but in bismuth, blah, 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 blah.
So, obviously by his own words and his own studies, very smart man.
Bismuth crystals, by the way, pure bismuth crystals, not compounds, okay, just pure bismuth. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense according to the current theory of superconductivity. But you know what? It does make perfect, absolutely perfect sense. Is everything that I've said about superconductivity. There's no such thing as superconductivity. What superconductivity actually is...
Okay, here it comes.
Is insanely low magnetic permeability. Is insanely low magnetic permeability. Is insanely low magnetic permeability.
Now, here's where Ken tries to explain this, and I don't think he does a very good job. Then I will give my explanation, which is absolutely correct.
Basically, a superconductor is kind of like a bulletproof trampoline for the transverse bisection of magnetic fields.
Now, I've stopped here because I think Ken is again alluding to his big discovery, but basically I had my information out first, and I showed it on this video before you made your announcement. And this video shows the configuration because I built, excuse me, I built what I can see. So, yeah, just so you know, him saying that stuff splits now is because of what I've written, because I put it on video before he said it.
In other words, what we call superconductors is nothing other than a gigantic Fort Knox vault door to the penetration of magnet, to put it in layman's terms, right? That's not superconductivity. That is extremely low magnetic permeability.
Okay, so that's where Ken's wrong. Superconductivity, as you heard, he didn't explain it. He said it was like a door. Nope, that's not what's happening. When energy moves through something, all the way down to infinity, there is an arrow. It is a dielectric energy bolt, dielectric vortex. And so what it does with matter is that very first arrow hits matter and it splits sideways. Both leaders spin out to the sides and then curl around in an Ouroboros torus field and recombine on the other side. Now, if that beam was a foot wide and that first beam was a atom width or an electron width or whatever, what it means is there's an Ouroboros torus field created as it splits the matter in two. Then the next field must go around. Then the next field must go around, perpendicular to the original flow, changing in the Fibonacci spiral. So the field gets bigger, but it is Ouroboros torus field after Ouroboros torus field, and they all spill out over the top. That's what happens when energy goes through something. When you lower the temperature, you take away the pathways of the energy flow, and so it flows over and around the material. But they're supercooling it, okay? So they'll say that the energy that we're passing through it is we get the same amount of energy on the other side, perfect energy transfer. Here's the lie. Superconductivity relies on pulling out heat. They're using energy to stop the heat from vibrating the particles, which generate heat perpendicular to the original source, which is where you get your heat from. Energy comes out sideways and so makes other things vibrate, and that creates heat. When you supercool something, you stop the ability of the energy to pass through that particle. It is losing energy to the mass of the particle as a vortex trying to drill into it. But if you supercool it, you are taking this energy away. So you're actually using energy to take away energy while pretending that the source is constant when it isn't. Because if you turn off that source, all that energy will immediately disappear into the surrounding frozen environment. So that's why it has no or less magnetic permeability. Magnetic permeability means it goes through something and then the next beam creates an Ouroboros torus around that first object. Then the next beam creates an Ouroboros torus field around that object, and they all combine on the other side in a dielectric beam. So that's why. It's got nothing to do with Fort Knox doors. That's just like saying something's closed. This has to do with the fact that they're actually pulling energy out to keep the energy in. So yeah, this locked door, no, it's a frozen door. And if there was no supercooling, the energy would heat it all up. So do you see? They're using energy to get rid of energy while maintaining the fact that they're putting through energy. No, they're not. Energy is being lost to the coldness of the supercooling. So, sorry Ken, your explanation, as you keep telling us, is only a description. You described something. You didn't tell me how it was working. I've just said it, and I've shown it. So, to get something to superconduct, we obviously now know, due to you have to freeze something, to make something superconduct, you have to make the energy move in the least resistant path, which is an Ouroboros torus field around any matter. Do you understand? It is the construction of the material. Basically, a good example would be a snowflake. This is the path of energy. So if you could push this over into an X shape, so that you got the hole at the front here, energy would hit, pass straight through, and also go around the rings in that fractal pattern, all meeting at a point. So if you had egg-shaped snowflakes, you would probably have a superconductor, because it's about construction. It's not about supercooling. It's about allowing energy to move without hitting anything. So you have to make a containment field based upon construction. And there's a million things in nature that God has created that will show this. I'm not doing it here because the video is getting on too long anyway. But basically, yeah, a snowflake is a perfect example of energy leaving something and leaving behind a cold matter shell. So if you can recreate that in an egg shape, you may have superconductivity. It's about construction.
Everything, and this is their own words, by their own admission here, and I'll put the link below, by their own admission, everything that they thought was true about superconductivity was bull. Because it turns out that elemental crystalline bismuth is a superconductor, to use their word. But that completely flies in the face of everything that they understood superconductivity to be.
And there Ken is correct. So it doesn't come down to the material, because we've just found out bismuth is a superconductor, but only if you stop things moving so that energy has to run around the outside.
So there you go, a major discovery about elemental crystalline bismuth that vindicates me and everything I've written about magnetism and cosmic mechanics, and yet which completely confounds the assholes. By their own admission, it confounds them because it flies in the face of their own goddamn theory of superconductivity.
Now you hear Ken saying it all flies in the face and blah blah blah, but basically it comes down to the fact that Ken still doesn't know what he's talking about. He's alluding to it by showing his fingers moving in two directions, but I've already shown that with a dielectric circuit to an electromagnetic waveform, which is an Ouroboros torus field, which is how energy passes through and around any object that it comes in contact with. So, yeah, your explanation of a locked door was rubbish. I don't deal in descriptions either. So, yeah, I've just explained this. So yeah, I got all this information from God in visions in 2014, and for the past 2.5, almost 3 years, I've been writing it all down and putting it on the web. So, sorry Ken, you still don't know how energy moves through a field, and you still haven't said it. So, I think this video shows that anything you say about energy splitting and rolling around anything and flipping over is a copy of my work, which I've been doing. And it's not Mother Nature, it's God, and the energy is coming out of his hand in Habakkuk 3:4, original Hebrew. He is as the light, and from his hand horns protrude, and this is the hiding of his power. And he showed it to me. Nobody steals God's glory by stealing work that I've done for God. Thanks very much. My name is Lee, and I'm a Christian.